Hey folks, welcome back. Today I wanted to take a look at two of the latest terrain expansions for Heroscape Age of Annihilation, the Lava Fields and Caverns of Valhalla. Right off the top, I'd like to thank Renegade Game Studios for sending me these sets to review on my channel. Because of their similarities, I decided to compare and contrast both sets within one video, and that's what you're looking at right here. As always, unaffiliated links to these products will be provided below. Starting with the Lava Fields of Valhalla, this terrain expansion brings fans of Heroscape the long-awaited return of hot lava death. Prior to this, the only way to get your hands on these fiery terrain pieces was by purchasing an old Volcaren Wasteland expansion from 2005. Transformers fans everywhere will be able to regale you with tales of the infamous gold plastic syndrome, and unfortunately, many of these 20-year-old Heroscape pieces have fallen victim to the same ills. I strongly advise against rolling the dice on an old terrain set like this, no matter how hot your D20 is. As such, this might be the most important terrain reprint Renegade has made to date. You likely won't need more than one or two of these sets to improve your map-making capabilities though, as the terrain included inside has some significant impacts on gameplay. There are two primary types. Lava field tiles are shaped like regular Heroscape hexes and can be traversed normally with no hindrance. However, any figures left standing on them at the end of a round must roll an attack die. On a skull, they suffer a wound. Molten Lava tiles are more similar to water tiles, except these don't just slow you down, they can also kill you. Any figure moving into Molten Lava must roll a d20. On any result less than a 20, they are instantly destroyed. Kids, do not try this at home. Because of their powerful effects, you are unlikely to use a significant amount of lava on any given map. Nonetheless, the Lava Fields of Valhalla terrain expansion gives us plenty to work with. Included within are two 24 hex, 5 7 hex, two 3 hex, two 2 hex, and two single hex lava field tiles, as well as 3 3 hex and 20 single hex molten lava tiles. Of these 20, 6 of them have a series of holes molded into them, and this is to facilitate the inclusion of 4 lava rock outcrop pieces. These elements are brand new to the game, at least with this color palette. Based on the glaciers and rock outcroppings of Classicscape, this latest iteration recaptures those aesthetics in a rather authentic way, if you ask me. The rock outcrops themselves have pegs on the bottom of them to interlock with the bases I mentioned earlier. This system was largely carried over from the original production of these elements, though there have been some changes. And I don't think I like them. The most obvious one that most veteran fans of the game will notice is that the 3 hex rock outcropping no longer rests on a special 3 hex base. Instead, you're meant to interconnect 3 of the single hex bases together. This wouldn't be much of an issue if it weren't for the need to rotate each hex to match the correct alignment. This takes what was a pretty simple system and trades it for frustration and tedium. Not a good exchange if you ask me. This change does confer some benefits though. By breaking the bases up into individual segments, you're no longer left with giant purpose-built parts collecting dust. Instead, you can use these 1 hex tiles interchangeably with the other 1 hexes included in the set, allowing for greater granularity in map design. From a business standpoint, I can totally see why a change like this would make sense. Instead of having to cut steel molds for multiple base sizes, costs can be saved by developing a new system where only 1 hex bases are ever needed. While pragmatic, I do think this has a negative impact on the user experience, unfortunately. Lining up the 1 hex bases so that they interlock with the 3 hex rock outcrop can be a clumsy affair, and it sadly comes with another major downside, something else that was carried over from the originals. The 1 hex bases of yesteryear just didn't sit well on top of other Heroscape hexes. The 3 hex, 4 hex, and 6 hex bases all interlocked with the tiles beneath them to a sufficient degree, but the single hex bases weren't so lucky. Often it felt like these elements had to be used exclusively on level 0, or had to be secured by surrounding terrain, a la jungle trees and bushes. I was really holding out hope that Renegade would fix this issue. Unfortunately, fix it they did not. If anything, I actually think the newest mold iteration is worse in this regard, but it's also quite possible that they were unaware of the issue. It's not something that most folks talked about, at least in my experience. It's kind of like how the old evergreen trees would hang over the edge of the hex, making it impossible to stack other terrain next to them without knocking them off their moorings. Maybe some folks never noticed this, but I certainly did. Sadly, because the 3-hex rock outcropping now uses 1-hex bases, it is no longer spared from this issue. All rock outcrops going forward are likely to use this new system, and I personally don't hold much hope of it getting addressed in any significant fashion. It's a minor gripe, but a disappointing one all the same. In a similar vein are the new injection marks. These appear to be a little less refined than ones we've seen previously. Sometimes this leads to hexes not interlocking correctly without sanding down the edges somewhat. It's an annoyance for sure, but not completely unacceptable by any stretch. Just something to be informed of before making a purchase. So, ultimately, I'm somewhat at a loss as to where I fall on this set. On one hand, a new source of lava terrain is a godsend. Some of these elements have never existed in the game before, meaning that there's something here for both old and new fans of the game. On the other hand, I think the bases for the rock outcrops are a noticeable step down in ergonomic quality compared to their predecessors. What's worse, the pegs differ in shape, size, and placement, meaning that you can't even just use the new rocks with the old bases. They're completely incompatible. That detail makes it hard to recommend this set as full-throatedly as I would like. You'll have to make your own decisions here. Remember, never take financial advice from a slug. Alright, let's now take a look at the next terrain expansion set, the Caverns of Valhalla. This set brings us the return of another pair of coveted terrain types, dungeon tiles and shadow tiles. Exclusively released in the Battle for the Underdark Master set back in the day, dungeon terrain can help give your maps a subterranean feel, and shadow tiles allow you to add powerful defensive areas to the battlefield. Here's how they work. Dungeon tiles function like any regular grass, rock, or sand tile, with no special rules on their own. Some army cards do feature special powers that interact with this terrain element though, so keep your eyes open for abilities like Hide in Darkness. Shadow tiles do not feature any special movement rules, but they do have an impact on combat. Small, medium, and large figures roll 1 extra defense die when standing on a shadow tile, enhancing their ability to shrug off blows. Both terrain types are fitting facsimiles of their original production run, though I personally would have liked to have seen some more deviation in the shadow tile design. I think a translucent dark gray would have been really neat to see, rather than the opaque black of the originals. Oh well. Like the Lava Fields of Valhalla, the Caverns of Valhalla has a similar terrain breakdown, with a few notable exceptions. Included within are 2 24-hex, 5 7-hex, 2 3-hex, 2 2-hex, and 7 single-hex dungeon tiles, as well as 14 single-hex shadow tiles. Again, 6 of these 14 feature holes for the rock outcrops. 1 3-hex rock and 3 single-hex rocks are included, just like in the Lava Fields of Valhalla. The main difference in the terrain distribution between these two comes down to their single-hex and zero-height offerings. Upon release, many map makers bemoaned the general lack of single-hex tiles in Renegade terrain expansions. I've already shared my thoughts on the matter in a previous video, but I feel that the inclusion of 7 single-hex tiles in the Caverns of Valhalla is a direct response to this criticism. Perhaps to make up for this, the Caverns of Valhalla set contains noticeably less zero-height tiles compared to the earlier Renegade expansions. 20 single-hex as well as 3 3-hex zero-height tiles was the norm, but the Caverns of Valhalla bucks this trend by only including 14 single-hexes and excluding the 3-hex variant altogether. There's still plenty to work with though, and the 7 single-hex dungeon tiles are a real boon, as the original master set they debuted with only contained 2. All told, the Caverns of Valhalla gets a nearly identical mixed blessing from me. What's good is great, and what's lacking is a bit disappointing. With that being said, there simply isn't a better way to get lava and dungeon terrain into your collection today. Aftermarket prices for these terrain types were becoming insane as demand grew, so it's fantastic to see this new stock pump fresh blood into the game. To help spark your creativity, here are a couple of maps I designed with these new terrain expansion sets. The first, Presto, combines the Battle for the Wellspring battle box with the Caverns of Valhalla terrain expansion for some fast and furious gameplay. A relatively small map, you'll want to grab hold of any height you can find and fight tooth and nail to defend it. There's a crevice of shadow tile running through the center to help figures contest the height on either side, and the jungle trees and rock outcrops also provide some cover for advancing armies. I recommend using some fairly low power glyphs on this map, given their relative closeness to each other. Dagmar, Lodin, and Yudalkia are all solid picks here. The second map I designed for this video is a lot bigger. Peaceable Kingdom combines the Lava Fields of Valhalla with both the Lands and Ruins of Valhalla sets. This failing fortress has slowly succumbed to the ravages of war, but even in its ruined state, the battle of all time rages on. With several line-of-sight blockers encircling the map, armies will have multiple avenues with which to attempt an attack. The majority of valuable high ground consists of lava field tiles, so you'll have to remember to keep your army mobile and avoid leaving figures on this dangerous terrain. Because the glyphs are so far apart, I think you can afford to use some stronger stuff here. Valda, Ulaniva, or better yet Sola Astrid might be wise options to consider. All in all, I've played some really fun games on these maps, so if you decide to try them out, let me know how it goes. I'll leave the instructions for both in the video description, though you can also find them on Heroscape.org. Thanks for watching, everyone. I've been your host, R.R. Slugger, and until next time, happy scaping.